Committee substitute for Senate Bill 7. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 7 relating to the computation of and to decreasing the rates of the franchise tax.
Threatened every day. No, I threatened every day. That's how I did it. They all felt sorry for me because I'm going to have a baby. Can I get those extra copies? Can I get the stuff? Thank you.
Members, the following amendment, the Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 1 by Huffine.
Members, the following amendment to the amendment. The Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 2 by Fraser, amending Floor Amendment number 1 by Huffine.
Senator Fraser, you're recognized on the amendment to the amendment by Senator Huffine.
Thank you, members. The amendment to the amendment that you has been passed out is part of a long consideration. A lot of conversations have been going on with members about what we should do about a tax that was put in place in 2006, and I have to tell you, it's one of the most unpopular taxes that the legislature ever put in place. The franchise tax that was implemented in 2006 was intended at that time to be what we called, or the legislature called, a broad-based low tax rate that wasn't intended to be a burden on business. Unfortunately, when businesses are looking at coming to Texas, that discussion always comes up. We've got two problems that has been created by the franchise tax, is that even though there have been attempts made to continue to either bring down the impact or to move toward repealing it, that it brings in $9.4 billion, and a bigger concern is that when this was put in place, that the franchise tax, all the revenue at that time was dedicated to the Property Tax Relief Fund. Now that means that, if you remember, when we took the school taxes and brought them down to from 150 and did the Property Tax Relief Fund, we dedicated the franchise tax to that fund, and that's where that $9.4 billion is in that fund. I think all of us agree we'd love to see the franchise tax go away, but if you do away with the franchise tax, you have a $9.4 billion hole in the budget that you've got to figure out a way to fill, and that hole is in property tax relief. And Madam Chairman, I would love to just vote to do away with it today, but if we do that, that means property taxes go back immediately to $1.50, which none of us want that to happen. The amendment that I'm offering today, if you look at the purpose and findings of the amendment, the legislature finds that the tax imposed by the Texas Tax Code has not provided sufficient reliability for property tax relief. It is the intent of the legislature to promote economic development by repealing the franchise tax. It further says that by September 30, 2016, we're asking the comptroller to identify the effects of economic growth on future state revenues and to come back with a study recommending a movement of how we could move toward eliminating the franchise tax. That is the amendment to the amendment. I hope it's acceptable to the author, and I would now move passage.
I'd like to be recognized.
Senator Huffine, you're recognized on the amendment to the amendment. I have to recognize the amendment on the amendment. Will you yield to Senator West to ask the question of Senator Fraser?
Yes, Mr. West.
Senator West, you're now recognized to Senator Fraser.
Senator Fraser?
Yes.
So this guts the Huffine's amendment then, right?
I'm sorry?
If your amendment goes on, it guts
No, actually, this helps Huffine's amendment to put it in place so that we make sure that if and when we do eliminate the franchise tax, that we don't automatically raise property taxes back up to $1.50, because I think the people that you represent, that we gave that property tax relief, that we eliminate the property tax relief fund, which this is funding, property taxes go back up.
Okay, so your amendment, as I said, on pages 1 of the Huffine's amendment, strikes line 9 through 29, and there are 29 lines on page 1, and on page 2 it strikes lines 1 through 26, and on page 2 there are 26 lines. Did you hear me over there? On page 1. On page 1.
I got you now.
Okay, you got me now? All right.
You're doing your best Barry White. And
I was trying, and I got a little cough here. So on page 1, your amendment to the amendment strikes lines 9 through 29. Is that correct?
That is what it says, yes.
Okay, that's substantially all of his amendment, isn't it?
Well, we're adding an amendment to the amendment.
On page 2, you strike lines 1 through 26, and there's 26 lines on page 2. So that's striking everything on page 2. Is that correct?
It's improving his amendment, yes.
It's an improvement on his amendment. I was trying to. We can hear Ben. Okay. So.
Excuse me, Senators. We need to have order behind the rail and on the floor so members can be heard. Thank you.
Okay, so this perfects his amendment? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's your words, not mine.
Okay, so what does your amendment do to his amendment, given the fact that you're pretty much striking 90% of his amendment?
Let me start all over again. Obviously, you weren't listening when I gave the description of the bill. I'll start all over and go ahead and give all my comments if you want to, or we can get them to read it back in out of the record so you catch up.
I couldn't hear you the first time.
So you meant to start all over again?
No, just in summary. What does your amendment do to his amendment?
Okay, what this will do for you is that we're giving the intent of the legislature that it is our intention to do away with the franchise tax. We're asking the comptroller to do a study delivered to us by next September to the legislature and LBB that how we would go about that and medical recommendation so that we can address that.
Okay, thank you very much. I heard that.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator Huffine on the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. First, I'd like to say what my amendment does, and that is it puts this bad...
Mr. President, I'm sorry, but if the amendment, we're not addressing your amendment yet, we're talking about mine. I'd be glad to answer questions about my amendment if possible, and I'm sorry, you know that I have a hearing problem. If I could get you to turn around and look at me as you're doing it, it'll help me a lot.
Certainly. Well, Senator Fraser, I move to table your amendment.
Chair recognizes Senator Fraser to close.
Members, there's a motion to table. My amendment is really pretty straightforward. All we're saying by this amendment is that we're asking the comptroller to make sure as we move forward in eliminating the franchise tax that the $9.4 billion that is in the property tax relief fund, that we have a mechanism to make sure that by if you just eliminate it, all of a sudden property taxes go up, and I don't think that's what we want to do. We want to address that. So that's what this amendment to the amendment do. I would ask you not to move to table.
Members, the question on the table, on the floor, is Senator Huffine is moving to table the amendment to the amendment. The Secretary will call the roll.
Betancourt, Birdwell, Burton, Campbell, Creighton, Ellis, Eltife, Estes, Fraser, Garcia, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa, Huffines, Huffman, Colcourse, Lucio, Menendez, Nelson, Nichols, Perry, Rodriguez, Schwertner, Sulliger, Taylor of Galveston, is he going to give me a signal? Taylor of Collin, Uresti, Watson, West, Whitmire, Zaffarini.
There being 7 ayes and 24 nays, the motion to table fails. Member, the question is now on the adoption of floor amendment number 2, which amends floor amendment number 1. Secretary will call the roll.
Betancourt, Birdwell, Burton, Campbell, Creighton, Ellis, Eltife, Estes, Fraser, Garcia, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa, Huffines, Huffman, Colcourse, Lucio, Menendez, Nelson, Nichols, Perry, Rodriguez, Schwertner, Sulliger, Taylor of Galveston, Taylor of Collin, Uresti, Watson, West, Whitmire, Zaffarini.
Members, there being 22 ayes and 9 nays, floor amendment number 2 is adopted. Members, the motion on the floor now is to vote on floor amendment number 1 by Huffines as has been adopted, has been amended by Fraser's floor amendment number 2. So once again,